Why, hello there. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me for another Bible reading. I am excited to continue in this story. When we last left off, Abraham had just lost his wife. Isaac lost his mother, and we saw them bury her. And now Isaac has his new wife, Rebecca. And the first thing that they do when they're married is Rebecca comforts him over the loss of his mother. And we see that Rebecca is very kind and caring. She cares for animals. She's very generous. And this was the woman that that the Lord chose for Isaac to marry. So we're going to just kind of change generations a little bit. Abraham is still around, but the focus is shifting a little bit in this next chapter of the story. So we're going to start off with a little bit more of telling about Abraham. So we're on chapter 25 of Genesis, for anyone who wants to read along. So, Abraham marries Keturah. Abraham married Keturah, and they had 6 sons: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Later, Jokshan became the father of Sheba and Dedan, and when Dedan grew up, he had 3 sons: Azrim, Letushim, and Leumim. Midian also had 5 sons: Ephah, Epher, Hanak, Abida, and Eldah. While Abraham was still alive, he gave gifts to the sons of Hagar and Keturah. He also sent their sons to live in the east, far from his son Isaac, and when Abraham died, he left everything to Isaac. So Abraham has quite a few children at this point. He's been with multiple women, and he still favors Isaac, because Isaac was the one that was promised to him from the Lord. I guess trying to pay his alimony and whatever, and child support to his other kids, but we see who is the favorite. The death of Abraham. Abraham died at the ripe old age of 175. His son Isaac and Ishmael buried him east of Hebron in Machpelah cave. That was part of the field Abraham had bought from Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite. That would be, I think, a very awkward funeral between those two men. Abraham was buried there beside his wife Sarah. God blessed Isaac after this, and Isaac moved to a place called the Well of the Living One Who Sees Me, which, as you might remember, is the place that was named by Ishmael's mom, Hagar. Ishmael's descendants. Ishmael was the son of Abraham and Hagar, and the slave woman of Sarah. Ishmael had 12 sons, in this order: Nebaioth, Kedar, Abdeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Temer, Jetur, Nephish, and Kedemah. Each of Ishmael's sons was a tribal chief, and a village was named after each of them. Ishmael had settled in the land east of his brothers, and his sons settled everywhere from Havilah to Shur, east of Egypt on the way to Ashur. Ishmael was 137 when he died. The birth of Esau and Jacob. Isaac was the son of Abraham, and he was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel. She was also the sister of Laban, and the Aramean from northern Syria. Almost 20 years later, Rebekah still had no children. So Isaac asked the Lord to let her have a child, and the Lord answered his prayer. So that's kind of, pretty amazing that he's submitting this to the Lord, just like his father, Abraham, submits things to the Lord. And once again, we have a couple who is unable to bear children, and God intervenes. Before Rebekah gave birth, she knew she was going to have twins, because she could feel them inside her fighting each other. She thought, "Why is this happening to me?" Finally, she asked the Lord why her twins were fighting, and he told her, "Your 2 sons will become 2 separate nations. The younger of the 2 will be stronger, and the older son will be his servant." And so I guess we're still at the point where you just have straight-up conversations with God, and that's pretty amazing. When Rebekah gave birth, the first baby was covered with red hair, so his name was Esau. The second baby grabbed onto his brother's heel, so they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. So man, they went 20 years of being married and not able to have any kids. That's a very long time to want something. It kind of seems in a way that Bible time goes by really fast. It's like, oh, 2 sentences later, it's been a century now. But, to actually be living that That's why they have to tell it. This book spans thousands of years, so they can't spend, multiple chapters every time on 1 year. But just to be hit by that, for anybody who's had to wait for something for 20 years, I'm not even 24. I couldn't imagine if I asked God for something now and he's not going to grant it to me until, I'm 43 or 44. That's inconceivable to me. So have you ever had to wait for something a long time, decades? And what was it like when you finally were able to receive that blessing or whatever it was that you were hoping for? That would be something interesting to learn. Esau sells his rights as the firstborn son. As Jacob and Esau grew older, Esau liked the outdoors and became a good hunter, while Jacob settled down and became a shepherd. Which I find weird, because isn't being a shepherd also being in the outdoors? I don't know. Esau would take the meat of wild animals to his father Isaac, and so Isaac loved him more, but Jacob was his mother's favorite. One day Jacob was cooking some stew when Esau came home hungry and said, "I'm starving to death. Give me some of that red stew right now." That's how Esau got the name Edom. Jacob replied, "Sell me your rights as the firstborn son." It's a crafty one. "I'm about to die," Esau answered. "What good would those rights do to me?" But Jacob said, "Promise me your birthrights here and now." And that's what Esau did. Jacob then gave Esau some bread and some of the bean stew, and when Esau had finished eating and drinking, he just got up and left, showing how little he thought of his rights as the firstborn son. You know what I'm thinking of right now? I'm kind of thinking of The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. I literally imagine, if Cody is the responsible-ish one, just tricking Zach into giving him something. And Zach just doesn't even care. So this is these brothers. I don't even know. A lot of people blame Jacob for being a trickster and a deceiver. But Esau doesn't even care. He doesn't care. He just wants to go and hunt. He doesn't care about the future. It's whatever. I'm hungry. I don't want to cook for myself. I don't want to ask the servants to get me some food. I want your stew, and I don't care what I have to do to get it. So, I can't with these two. Isaac and Abimelech. Chapter 26. Once during Abraham's lifetime, the fields had not produced enough grain, and now the same thing happened. So Isaac went to King Abimelech of the Philistines in the land of Gerar, because the Lord had appeared to Isaac and said, "Isaac, stay away from Egypt. I will show you where I want you to go. You will live there as a foreigner, but I will be with you and bless you. I will keep my promise to your father Abraham by giving this land to you and your descendants. I will give you as many descendants as there are stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all of this land. They will be a blessing to every nation on earth, because Abraham did everything I told him to do." And so, despite all the problems and the times Abraham didn't really listen, or that he lied or didn't believe God, you can see God still loves him, and he still loves us. Isaac moved to Gerar with his beautiful wife Rebekah. And do you know what's going to happen? Like father, like son. He was afraid that someone might kill him to get her, and so he told everyone that Rebekah was his sister. After Isaac had been there a long time, King Abimelech looked out a window and saw Isaac hugging and kissing Rebekah. Abimelech called him in and said, "Rebekah must be your wife. Why did you say she is your sister?" "Because I thought someone would kill me," Isaac answered. "Don't you know what you've done?" Abimelech exclaimed. "If someone had slept with her, you would have made our whole nation guilty." Then Abimelech warned his people that anyone who even touched Isaac or Rebekah would be put to death. So I don't know if Isaac was there the first time Abraham and Sarah did this. I think he might have been old enough the second time. So I guess we know what he learned. Or maybe Abraham was telling this story around the dinner table one day of the 2 times he lied about this. And probably more times, I'm sure. This is just the 2 times we know about. So Isaac was like, I know what to do. I know what to do when I go to a foreign place with my wife. Well, Isaac planted grain and had a good harvest that same year. The Lord blessed him, and Isaac was so successful that he became very rich. In fact, the Philistines were jealous of the large number of sheep, goats, and slaves that Isaac owned, and they stopped up the wells that Abraham's servants had dug before his death. Finally, Abimelech said, "Isaac, I want you to leave our country. You have become too powerful to stay here." So, yeah, I guess the Philistines are pranking Isaac, and Abimelech is tired of their fighting, and so he tells Isaac to leave, even though I don't know that Isaac did anything in this situation. So Isaac left and settled in Gerar Valley, where he cleaned out those wells that the Philistines had stopped up. Isaac also gave each of the wells the same name that Abraham had given to them. While his servants were digging in the valley, they found a spring-fed well. But the shepherds of Gerar Valley quarreled with Isaac's shepherds and claimed the water belonged to them. So the well was named Quarrel, because they had quarreled with Isaac. Isaac's servants dug another well, and the shepherds also quarreled about it. So that well was named Jealous. He's just trying to pwn them and, burn. Finally, they dug one more well. There was no quarreling this time, and the well was named Lots of Room, because the Lord had given them room and would make them very successful. So the wells, they have a history. It seems like if something happens near a well, it gets a special name. I wonder about that. Why, I guess it's the same with a lot of things, like highways or whatever. If something happens, or if there's some big person who bought it, gets that name. But honestly, I don't think we name things like that very often because something happened. I'm curious to know. Isaac went on to Beersheba, where the Lord appeared to him that night and told him, "Don't be afraid. I am the God who was worshipped by your father Abraham, my servant. I will be with you and bless you, and because of Abraham, I will give you many descendants." Isaac built an altar there and worshipped the Lord. Then he set up camp, and his servants started digging a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had left Gerar and was taking his advisor Huzath and his army commander Phicol to see Isaac. When they arrived, Isaac asked, "Why are you here? Didn't you send me away because you hated me?" They answered, "We now know for certain that the Lord is with you, and we have decided there needs to be a peace treaty between you and us. So let's make a solemn promise not to harm each other. Remember, we have never hurt you, and when we sent you away, we let you go in peace. The Lord has truly blessed you." Isaac gave a big feast for them, and everyone ate and drank. Early the next morning, Isaac and the others made a solemn agreement. Then he let them go in peace. Later that same day, Isaac's servants came and said, "We've struck water." So Isaac named the well Sheba, and the town is still called Beersheba. Esau's foreign wives. When Esau was 40, he married Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Besemeth, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Elon Musk. But these two women brought a lot of grief to his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. Isaac blessed Jacob. After Isaac had become old and almost blind, he called in his firstborn son Esau, who asked him, "Father, what can I do for you?" Isaac replied, "I am old and might not die at any time. So take your bow and arrows, then go out in the fields and kill a wild animal. Cook some of that tasty food that I love so much and bring it to me. I want to eat it once more and give you my blessing before I die." Got the more shenanigans are coming up. Rebekah had been listening, and as soon as Esau left to go hunting, she said to Jacob, "I heard your father tell Esau to kill a wild animal and cook some tasty food for your father before he dies. Your father said this because he wants to bless your brother with the Lord as his witness. Now, my son, listen carefully to what I want you to do. Go and kill 2 of your best young goats and bring them to me. I'll cook the tasty food that your father loves so much. Then you can take it to him so he can eat it and give you his blessing before he dies." "My brother Esau is a hairy man," Jacob reminded her, "and I am not. If my father touches me and realizes I'm trying to trick him, he will put a curse on me instead of giving me a blessing." Rebekah insisted, "Let his curse fall on me. Just do what I say and bring me the meat." So Jacob brought the meat to his mother, and she cooked the tasty food that his father liked. Then she took Esau's best clothes and put them on Jacob. She also covered the smooth part of his hands and neck with goat skins and gave him some bread and the tasty food she had cooked. So that's how hairy Esau is like literally like having a pelt of hair on him, apparently. Jacob went to his father and said, "Father, here I am." "Which one of my sons are you?" his father asked. Jacob replied, "I'm Esau, your firstborn, and I have done what you told me. Please sit up and eat the meat I have brought. Then you can give me your blessing." Isaac asked, "My son, how did you find an animal so quickly?" "The Lord your God was kind to me," Jacob answered. "My son," Isaac said, "come closer where I can touch you and find out if you really are Esau." Jacob went closer. His father touched him and said, "You sound like Jacob, but your hands feel hairy like Esau's." And so Isaac blessed Jacob, thinking he was Esau. Isaac asked, "Are you really my son Esau?" "Yes, I am," Jacob answered. So Isaac told him, "Serve me the wild meat, and I can give you my blessing again, I guess." Jacob gave him some meat, and he ate it. He also gave him some wine, and he drank it. Then Isaac said, "Son, come over here and kiss me." While Jacob was kissing him, Isaac caught the smell of his clothes and said, "The smell of my son is like a field the Lord has blessed. God will bless you, my son, with dew from heaven and with fertile fields, rich with grain and grapes. Nations will be your servants and bow down to you. You will rule over your brothers, and they will kneel at your feet. Anyone who curses you will be cursed. Anyone who blesses you will be blessed." Right after Isaac had given Jacob his blessing and Jacob had gone, Esau came back from hunting. He cooked the tasty food, brought it to his father, and said, "Father, please sit up and eat the meat I have brought you, so you can give me your blessing." "Who are you?" Isaac asked. "I'm Esau, your firstborn son." Isaac started trembling and said, "Then who brought me some wild meat right before you came in? I ate it and gave him a blessing that cannot be taken back." Esau cried loudly and begged, "Father, give me a blessing too." Isaac answered, "Your brother tricked me and stole your blessing." Esau replied, "My brother deserves the name of Jacob because he has already cheated me twice. The first time he cheated me out of my rights as the firstborn son, and now he has cheated me out of my blessing." Then Esau asked his father, "Don't you still have any blessing left for me?" "My son," Isaac answered, "I have made Jacob the ruler over you and your brothers, and all of you will be his servants. I've also promised him all the grain and grapes that he needs. There's nothing left that I can do for you." "Father," Esau asked, "don't you have more than one blessing? You can surely give me a blessing too." Then Esau started crying again. So his father said, "Your home will be far from the fertile land where dew comes down from the heavens. You will live by the power of your sword and be your brother's slave. But when you decide to be free, you will break loose." Esau hated his brother Jacob because he had stolen the blessing that was supposed to be his. So he said to himself, "Just as soon as my father dies, I'll kill Jacob." When Rebekah found out what Esau planned to do, she sent that for Jacob and told him, "Son, your brother Esau is just waiting for the time when he can kill you. Now listen carefully and do what I say. Go to the home of my brother Laban in Haran and stay with him for a while. When Esau stops being angry and forgets what you have done to him, I'll send for you to come home. Why should I have to lose both of my sons on the same day?" Rebekah later told Isaac, "Those Hittite wives of Esau are making my life miserable. If Jacob marries a Hittite woman, I'd be better off dead." Isaac's instructions to Jacob. Chapter 28. Isaac called in Jacob, then gave him a blessing and said, "Don't marry any of those Canaanite women. Go at once to your mother's father Bethuel in northern Syria and choose a wife from one of his daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. I pray that God All-Powerful will bless you with many descendants and let you become a great nation. May he bless you with the land he gave Abraham, so that you will take over this land, where we now live as foreigners." Isaac then sent Jacob to stay with Rebekah's brother Laban, the son of Bethuel the Aramean. Esau marries the daughter of Ishmael. Esau found out that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and had warned him not to marry any of the Canaanite women. He also learned that Jacob had been sent to find a wife in northern Syria, and that he had obeyed his father and mother. Esau already had several wives, but he realized at last how much his father hated the Canaanite woman. So he married Ishmael's daughter Mahalath, who was the sister of Nebaioth and the granddaughter of Abraham. Jacob's dream at Bethel. Jacob left the town of Beersheba, and started for Haran. At sunset, he stopped for the night and went to sleep, resting his head on a large rock. In a dream, he saw a ladder that reached from earth to heaven, and God's angels were going up and down on it. The Lord was standing beside the ladder and said, I am the Lord God who is worshipped by Abraham and Isaac. I will give to you and your family the land on which you are now sleeping. Your descendants will spread over the earth in all directions and will become as numerous as the specks of dust. Your family will be a blessing to all people. Wherever you go, I will watch over you. Then later I will bring you back to this land. I won't leave you. I will do all I have promised. Jacob woke up suddenly and thought, the Lord is in this place, and I didn't even know it. Then Jacob became frightened and said, this is a fearsome place. It must be the house of God and the ladder to heaven. When Jacob got up early the next morning, he took the rock he had used for a pillow and stood it up for a place of worship. Then he poured olive oil on the rock to dedicate it to God, and he named the place Bethel. Before it had been named Luz. Jacob solemnly promised God, if you go with me and watch over me as I travel, and if you give me food and clothes and bring me safely home again, you will be my God. This rock will be your house, and I will give back to you 1/10 of everything you gave me. And that brings us to the end. Chapter 29 is next. So there was definitely a lot going on there. One of the most interesting things I find is how this is starting to feel like a soap opera. We got like a scheming mother. We've got, this blended, well, not really blended, just this family that is really fractured. Abraham had as many women, and he sent two of them away with their sons, and he only loves Isaac. And Rebecca started off as this sweet girl, and now she's a schemer. And Isaac started off, being trusting in Abraham, even when his father literally tried to kill him. And now he's also a liar, like his father. And, these two twins are having their drama, and it's all crazy. And it's funny because this seems so over the top. But, some of this stuff does happen. I've seen it. It depends on people's personalities and things. But, family trouble, especially when it comes to money and, birthrights and property and all that. It can be intense and it can be insane. So this is definitely getting juicy, very spicy. We've, again, kind of shifted generations. We were with Abraham and Sarah for a very long time. But even just now, we've shifted. We, had the trail end of Abraham. Then we talked a little bit about Isaac and Rebecca. And now we've just shifted to Jacob and Esau. And we're going to be with them again next time. So, it's like we've gone through another generation. We didn't really get to be very attached to Isaac and Rebecca, which is too bad because, like I said, I really liked Rebecca. But then, just like anyone, I guess, anyone could have done the same. But she becomes this scheming mother who is trying to, I guess, bring about the prophecy that God gave her. But she wants to do it by scheming and lying and having her son scheme and lie and all these things. And she's got these daughters-in-law that are apparently driving her crazy. It's a telenovela. It really is. It's amazing. And one day I want to make it. I want to make the Bible into a telenovela one day because it's just amazing. And through it all, God still loves these people. And Jacob just kind of had his spiritual awakening, I guess you could say. He was kind of a schemer and a liar and not the best dude. Neither was Esau, really. But now God's got a hold of him. And we're going to see what happens. So, yeah, let me know what you think about this story. Again, I don't think it's one that people really know very much. I think when it comes to Isaac, the only thing they really know about is how Abraham tried to kill him. And when it comes to Jacob, I think they kind of just skip to the whole Jacob's ladder thing. I think that's probably the only thing that most people know. So again, we're not getting into like the most famous stories of the Bible, but that's why it's important to read the whole thing, because there's more to it than you probably thought. So we'll hopefully see you next time, and thank you again for joining me.